welcome to this video. It is February and we are going to do a little quick update about the Wardrobe Architect Challenge. If you haven't been informed of this, I did do an introductory video last month. I'll put the link to that down below so you can get an overview of what that is. But in short, if you're joining me for the very first time, the Wardrobe Architect Challenge is a year-long continuous wardrobe defining, redefining, sew along project, right? And it's led by the lovely people over at Colettery, and they have broken it down into different things to do for each month. So January was all about exploring our personal style. Before we can sew any of our garments or projects, we really should know, or the point of this whole thing, to be honest, is about finding a type of style that works for you, but also that speaks for you and that makes you really happy and confident when you wear it, right? Because I think that is probably the ultimate goal, I think, for most people when they think about their ideal wardrobe. It really makes them happy and confident. So a couple of things, and by the way, I do have notes because this is going to be a bit of a full video. Number one, we talked about making style personal, how your personal history, your family situation, where you grew up, the culture in which you grew up really shaped your understanding or your perception of style. Number two, we talked about defining your core style, which is kind of fun, and style icons, which I will share with you in a couple of minutes. Then number three, we talked about exploring different shapes in terms of garments. And number four, discovering proportions, silhouettes, and of course, which one works for your body type, or in this case, my body type. So I do want to share with you how I got on with those different segments for the month of January. So to begin, there were definitely a lot of worksheets in January, but it was more about kind of really thinking and looking into your own personal history and how that reflects in your clothing choices, or even your preference for certain aesthetics versus others. So for example, one of the questions in here, which I found really interesting, was how has your personal history informed the way you dress, right? When did your taste crystallize? Have they changed over the years, and why? And this is something I'll share a little bit with you about. And you know, coming from a Chinese family, I definitely had not super conservative family, but still more conservative than I would say the average North American or even just Canadian family altogether. And that certainly informed the way that I saw style, or the way I was allowed to dress when I was younger. And definitely growing up in that period in the 90s, there was a trend of a more unisex feel for children's wear. And I would, be dressed up in a lot of little button downs and cute pants. Like, they were cute, but they were more a little bit tomboyish versus very frilly dresses or skirts or tops or things like that. My mother, she sewed, but she never really made me super girly clothes, shall we say, in that sense. And growing up, the idea of being attractive or sexy was definitely downplayed, and it really wasn't until I was much older, in my later teens and 20s and things like that, that really I became more comfortable a bit wearing certain types of garments. And funny story, I used to always argue with my mother, as a little girl, you want to wear cute dresses and skirts, right? And in her mind, anything that was short was above the knee, and I fought her about this all the way through my teens. I was like, this is not short, and really in our North American sense, it's not short, but in her eyes, it was short because it was above the knee. So, little quirks like that, working through these worksheets definitely had me thinking about those experiences which shaped my personal understanding of style. And I would say right now, in my current situation, I've much more settled in to a style and have more of a vision of what I want my personal wardrobe to be and what I aspire for it to be. Now, this could be a very long work in progress, but at least I think I'm getting a sense of what I like, and I think this will stick around for a while, so I'm really happy about that one. So worksheets on that. Then next, we talked about defining your core style and your style icons. And this again is something that I have only recently settled into and felt really comfortable with. And I would say, since collecting vintage patterns, which I've talked to you guys about before, I really gravitate towards much more feminine silhouettes. I guess modern day equivalent, something like skater dresses or those fit and flare, right? That's becoming popular again. But style of the 50s, the 50s housewife style. I'm not sure if I would wear that to do housework, shall we say, but it's very pleasing to me anyways, and I love the silhouettes. It looks very feminine. So that's definitely something I enjoy. But in terms of a style icon, I may not have ever told you guys about this, but one woman who I think is always impeccably dressed, and I pretty much cannot fault anything that she wears. Olivia Palermo, I believe she was in one of those shows, Beverly Hills or 91210 or one of those shows. But she's a socialite along with other things, a modern entrepreneur probably, but I just love her taste. She always wears really feminine pieces, and I think she's a pretty kind of petite woman as well, and she always dresses so beautifully. Very classic shapes, but always with interesting details. And this again gets on to another worksheet where we talked about, how do we feel when we wear things that make us feel, things that we love, or how do we want to feel when we wear our ideal wardrobe. And we broke it down into a couple of different words, solidified our style, hopefully, into a few key terms that really describe how we want our wardrobe to be. And for me, I ended up with classic. I also ended up with feminine, charming, texture/detail. I kind of merged it into one word. And those are the descriptive words which I feel like, gee, if I had an ideal wardrobe, that's how I'd feel about it. Charming especially is a very interesting word now that I think about it. When you say something looks charming, or something is charming, or somebody is charming, it's something hard to put your finger on, but you get it once you see it or once you experience it. And of course, I love much more of a classic silhouette, but with fine and interesting details or textures. I think that's a great way to update or modernize a very classic wardrobe. And two other words which they put in here, and they're like, think about some words which kind of describe your style but isn't really you in that sense. And for me, two words, minimalistic and bombshell, and they seem almost opposites in a way. And when I talk about minimalistic, I like certain elements of minimalism, classic minimalism, but not necessarily like modern Alexander Wang minimalism. That's a little bit different for me, but it's kind of what I like, but not quite. And as well with the term bombshell, I love a more feminine silhouette, but bombshell I think is a little bit too va-va-voom in my personal life, so maybe a pared down version of bombshell. So those words get you thinking about your ideal wardrobe. So lastly, working through January's worksheets and whatnot, one thing that really dawned on me was this almost contradiction between what I think looks good on me versus what actually looks good on me for my body type, for example, and what is actually practical in the city that I live in, which rains all the time, which is like gloomy and wet and cold, right? So this comes to a point where I'm still deciding about how to incorporate the styles and the aesthetic that I love and making it practical. It's really not practical for me to be flouncing around in pretty dresses and skirts, although I would love to, but the reality is I gotta wear jeans and rain boots, which isn't exactly what I have going on here in my head. But those are things I've still got to figure out and think about once I'm choosing my patterns for the sewing projects I think that begins in March. But we also talked about some styles and silhouettes that we are attracted to, so I picked out a few. I'll have scans or pictures of them up here as I'm talking to you guys about it, but I do have it all glued down in my little work notebook, and definitely much more of that classic not even hourglass really, but more of a defined waist and a little bit fuller in the hips, because I do have slightly wider shoulders and a larger bust versus my hips, so trying to make things a little bit more balanced and definitely kind of a pretty girly palette. We'll talk about colors I think in February's worksheets, but yeah, I think this is about it. And what else do I have to say? I hope you guys enjoyed this series, by the way, that you don't find it too boring. I definitely am a crafter at heart, and although I don't do this all the time in my YouTube channel because it is mostly makeup, I have really been loving keeping you guys updated through Instagram and Twitter and whatnot, and of course in videos about the Wardrobe Architect Challenge. So next month for February, we're going to talk about, I think, clearing out our closet, which is a little bit intimidating, but we'll see how it gets on with that. Actually, it is already February, so maybe I'll film that for the end of this month so we can catch up and be all on time. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. So end of the month, look forward to the February update, which is closet overhaul, and looking at what colors work for you and what colors I'm going to choose for the patterns and garments I'll be sewing come the spring wardrobe. So stay tuned for that. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Questions and comments, as always, I love to talk to you guys about this and anything else. Leave it down below in the comment section. Talk to me over on social media, and I will see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.